everyone, it's Eon here. We're time to review the 3D printing releases of various tribes and Patreons that we see. Again, I don't get to everyone. It would be absolutely impossible for me to do that, even if I was doing this full time. And I would encourage you that if there's a Patreon and a tribe that you want to know about, comment below and let me know. So let's get started. We're going to start with one that's kind of hard to find a lot of information about, even though I actually personally subscribe to these, is Artisan Guild. This month they're doing the Children of the Forest, which is kind of like a halfling forest people. On the left here we see Bago Elderleaf and his owl, and on the right we have Willow Thornfoot. I do not know the character's name on the left, but on the right we can see that there are an example of the Lurican Fox Rider. There are several sculpts of these out this month. Again, we see Bago and his owl and amongst what they call the fungal clusters, so some great scatter terrain if you want some giant mushrooms. Artisan Guild also puts out a pinup model every month, and this is Phelan Oak Whisper that they have here. Usually two different variants of that model. They also like to put out a big miniature as well, and this month is an Elder Forest Dragon named Faith Thornax. Probably mispronouncing that, so apologies, Artisan Guild. Next up, very quickly, just want to mention Arbiter Miniatures is coming out. I apologize for the quality of that graphic, but what we have going on here are Hill Trolls. They have a pre-supported and supportless tiers. If you so wish, you can also get both, and you can see here several different models. I feel like there's probably a little bit more to what Arbiter is releasing, but it's not exceptionally clear. Next up, we have Archvillain Games, and Archvillain Games has both fantasy and science fiction that they can release. I do believe they have a alternative name for the Sci-Fi collection. I could be wrong there. So we have the Trench, or Neravari, and the Sylvari Ascendance High Blood Legacy for the Sci-Fi. So let's start off with the fantasy. These are basically underwater. We see the Dark Rillith, the Trench Terror. And then we have Elg Olfoot, a Malaudry Tactician, and the Lantern of the Deep. Flint Barreltop, and Arvail Reefguard Captain. And then Falara, the Dark Sea Nymph. Very detailed miniatures. We have the Oceleth Besieger in 4 different variants. The Voshavari Maiden, 4 different variants of that. The Nervari Myrmidon, 4 variants of this. Archvillain often gives you 4 variants, sometimes just 3, sometimes 2. With the Neradrak Rider, you get 4 variants of that. Different weapons choices, different riders, different poses. The Dragovari Wretch, very troll goblin looking characters, but with a tail. Then for the Sci-Fi, we have the Sylvari Ascendance, a High Blood Artillery. We have 3 variants of the High Blood Knight on some sort of speeder bike, for lack of a better term. And then they give us actually 6 different variants of the High Blood Lancer. And we have 2 variants of the High Blood Strider. And then we have 6 variants of the High Blood Warden. And that brings us to the High Blood Stargazer and Prince. New for this little month so far, and maybe I'll keep including them, is Bite the Bullet. Bite the Bullet has an amazing release this month that I just had to subscribe to, and I wanted to make sure you were aware of it too, in case you were interested in it too. And that is the Bullet Rings Evil. Not to be confused with Forces of Good, even though I think there is one good character pictured here. The good characters were a previous release, and I think if you get this one, they actually give you a discount code to go back and get the original good pack as well. But these are very stylized miniatures here. Very nice looking. I just really like these. The throwback, you have, of course, they had to have a cave troll, didn't they? So we have, if you don't have enough baddies, here are your goblins and cave trolls. So of course, we won't bother naming these characters, but you probably know them. Even with the Palantir. And then of course we have the troops as needed. And once he's unmounted, and some more characterful figures as well. And they can be mounted as well, depending on what you need them for. And of course we have to have someone to fail the Witch King. So amazing characters. And again, there's the throwback that they're releasing this month. Slightly different design there. Just amazing miniatures. I highly recommend them. Next up, we have Cast and Play. Cast and Play has the Elvenwood Grove this month. So this is the kind of the catch-all image of all of those miniatures. And so we've taken some of their colorized images, some of their painted ones to show you. We have various elf protectors, Fane, Thial, and Fandor Elyar. We have the Shadow Arcanus Vidar Selor in various poses. And I'm probably mispronouncing those, and I apologize. We have Eldarion in 3 different poses. We have elves that are riding unicorns or deer. And we have an elven rogue, very skillful archer. Here we have Hilta Cuisine, either on a tree or not. And we have a Moonflower Archer. 3 of them, each one different here, not 3 different poses. Malina, Aletha, and Muriel. That's how I would pronounce those names. Sunleaf Sliding Archers. So we have Sunleaf Archers. Again, all 3 of these are different ones. And of course we have the Elven Bard Urfin. Very characterful character here. And of course with Cast and Play, they are not going to let you go without some unique bases that you can print off and use for your figures. And of course, as one of the older Patreons, older tribes, you do get a throwback set as well, which has been curated from the list to kind of fit the theme of the current month. They just have that many minis now. Speaking of a lot of minis, it's time to look at Epic Miniatures. Epic Miniatures is releasing 2 updates a month. And each update is easily, the price is easily worth the cost of admission. Not to mention the 2 together. Not saying that to raise your prices, Epic. But here we go with 95 miniatures for this month. So update number 1 is Serpent's Rage. This is the Divine Temple. Next up, we have the Elephant God Avatar in 3 different poses. We have the Naga Queen. This was the first Naga to be transformed, and she commands all the other Naga and lizard folk. 3 different poses for her. The Cobra Folk Mage, member of the Serpent Folk, type Cobra. Magic attacks, of course. The Lamia Prince. It was a prince that was cursed to slowly turn into a snake. Not sure if that's supposed to be a mummy or if he is undergoing some more transformation. What exactly happened to the poor fellow on the left there? Then we have the Naga Sorcerer. So, different type of snake folk. Then we have Scorpion Swarms, because that just fits with snakes, right? Things that are venomous. These, of course, are in the Divine Temple and could be a trap for anyone that dares to go the wrong place. We have the Rage Demon Asura. a rage demon. The more powerful, the angrier it gets. And then we have serpent folk, and they have many different variants of serpent folk available this month. And so I've just kind of thrown a lot of these up here so that you can see them. They are snakes with limbs. And then I have this fella here that I am just very fond of. Again, I think he should be called the snake oil salesman, but I went ahead and put both the front and the back version of him so that you can see his backpack that is full of many wares for sale or trade. And because it fits in the concept of serpents, skeleton T-Rex, which is a toy of the Naga Queen in 3 different poses. And then we have the Naga Savage. I would not want to go up against this fella. We have the Death Goddess Avatar. Nothing can stop her wrath. And the Naga Death Envoy. She worships death, and she will follow the orders of the Death Goddess without question. Then we get to the Creator God Avatar, which has only one version here, and we may as well put the snake swarms in along with them. Why does it always have to be snakes? And then we have the Tiger Folk Adventurer. I suppose we have to have someone to raid the serpents. Now, that's 45 models down. Epic Miniatures is releasing 95 this month. So in typical Epic Miniatures fashion, they have released a second update, the Deep Dark Caves. And we start off with the big miniature, which is the Kobold Flamethrower Tank. You both see the front and the back of the tank. And of course, if it's kobolds, then we need kobolds. So they have multiple versions of kobolds with a pretty big bow for that fella. And even more kobolds as well. Some with wings, some without. Then we have an Earth Elemental female in 3 different poses. And a worm swarm, which could be used, they suggest, for maybe baby sandworms. Now, as you go deep into the dark, it's not going to be just kobolds. There's going to be other things there, and Epic Miniatures has you covered there as well. This is a Quaggoth. Territorial beasts live underground. We have the Dark Dwarf. They haven't seen sunlight for generations, and they basically are their own dwarven race. They seem to be part cyborg, don't they? We have a Blinded Eye Tyrant. Just one variant of him. We have the Draconic Demon Brass. This is the brass variety. We have the Ettercap, kind of a weird spider primitive creature. Bites are venomous, they shoot out sticky webs. Then we have the Dark Elf Spider, where the spider goddess transforms some dark elves into spiders. This could be a punishment, maybe it's a reward, depending on what you want to do. We have the Dark Elf Domina, sadistic elves unlike any of their cousins up above the ground. Then we have some mushroom folks deep within the underground. Not very talkative. The Bone Swarm, cursed piles of bones from previous adventurers that met their perilous end. We have the Deep Gnomes. They appear a little goblin-like, in my opinion. I was kind of expecting beards as I was going to put this together, but Epic does not disappoint. Then you have what's called the Deep Old Gnome. They grew old and wise, and they will help any adventurer that praises his majestic beard. The Mind Eater Adventurer. He has freed himself from the control of the Mind Emperor and travels the underground to take revenge. And then we have the Mind Emperor, massive Mind Eater that managed to overpower the hives that the Elder Brain and consume it, creating a new psychic monstrosity. And that is the 95 of 95 miniatures from Epic Miniatures. Next up, we have Highlands Miniatures. They are finishing off the Steppe Goblins and the Coast Goblins this month. The Coast Goblins, you can see, have brought in some crabs. So here we have a a siege tower. I don't know what their specific name is for it. Smaller crabs serve as a good riding platform, cavalry for the coast goblins. We have some more goblins. We have some siege weapons of various sorts, some daring aeronautics, and a good leader for us here. Next up, we have Printing Goes Ever On. Printing Goes Ever On is doing Tales of the Northern Kingdom Volume 1 this month, and there's a list of all the miniatures that they've included. I just copied and pasted it from Printing Goes Ever On, because I wasn't sure what they were going to be naming their characters here. I'm not as familiar with the lands of this area of the original source material, but they have kind of generated their own material. So you can see the king is unmounted here, along with his advisor. We can see some heroes on horseback or on foot. Either way. We have a bannerman and some foot soldiers, as well as some mounted soldiers. So lots of variations depending on what it is that you would like to do. We can also have the king as he is mounted on top of a pedestal, perhaps as a great mount. And you'll notice in the background of all of these aqueducts, apparently that is the modular terrain that they have for this month. So that's Printing Goes Ever On. STL Miniatures is releasing material always, and these are always very characterful sets. A favorite of the owner is the Riot set. So we can see lots of different things going on within these riots. We have scatter terrain, we have characters that are pillaging and plundering, and of course, in order to protect against the rioters, we have to have guardians of the temple that are ready to protect. And then we have Borak, which may be part of their Never Dawn set that they're doing. I'm not entirely sure, but just one more character. Next up, we have Titan Forge Miniatures. Titan Forge Miniatures releases sets that are both for like individual RPG play that you see kind of on the right here, as well as wargaming, as if you want rank and file troops on the left. There's a lot going on here, so let's kind of extrapolate that a little bit. So we have some Norse characters here that, so we have some leaders, some shamans. We have a chariot that can be done, and we have some cavalry. They do release a lot of different cavalry sets and sets that have different figures, different weapons, depending on what it is that you want to do. So here's I believe these are the same miniatures, just in slightly different form. Not exactly the same. You can see the Morning Star on the left, but not on the right. But the two-axe guy with the long horns is on both sides. We have some halflings, or gnomes rather, gnomes, not halflings. And they have cavalry of a sort that I think I saw another patron say, I never knew I needed these. And I would tend to agree. We also see gnomes being inventors as well, with their walker of some sort here. We can also have the dogs alone if we don't want to have them mounted by the gnomes, or we can have them with the gnomes. The previous ones had melee weapons, these are ranged weapons. We can see a amazing gnome tank. Can't tell if that side piece is actually attached or not. And we have a hot air balloon. Notice this guy is a sniper, but if you want to change him out, you can change them out into bombers as well. So there are options always with Titan Forge. And then, as if they didn't have enough to do, they have some walking bombs as well, with very crudely marked in inspirational messages, let's put it that way. Then, of course, we have a few RPG characters, as Titan Forge likes to do, as well as some monsters for your campaign. So we have basically an Umber Hulk and some sort of like phase spider, perhaps. I'm not entirely sure what that is. And then we do have the miniatures on the left. And Titan Forge is another one of those miniature companies that's been around for long enough that they give us throwbacks. And so this month is going to be vampires. They're going to re-release vampires. And I believe, I may be wrong, but I believe if you want to, you can vote on what next month's release pack throwback will be. Next up, we have Titan Forge's Sci-Fi sister site, Cyberforge. And Cyberforge tends to do a few different things. Again, they like to do wargaming, which you see as the Grim Realms. They like to do more RPG style stuff, which is the Titan City stories. Can be also skirmish for their Grid Wars sometimes. And then they like to release some terrain as well. Cyberforge has really been expanding themselves in lots of different ways. Here we have Junk Hard, which we can see the different minis. I didn't bother including all the individual pictures here. You can kind of pause and look at this and see the various minis that you get with these. And there are some others, like these Junkyard Ladies were not in the previous picture, and they go there with those very high stilettos with spikes. We also see Odin in a chariot here for the wargaming aspects of stuff. So the Moon Wolves that you see there, you can see him in that. There are variations of him not mounted as well. And then we have the Lycan Guards. Notice the Lycan Guards can come in this variant. And there is another variant here where they actually have the assault weapons on the back of their armor as well, the missiles. Cyberforge likes to release lots of terrain as well, so we have various scatter terrain for your war games. We also have some bases, and they have this typical, what is that, about 6 by 8 or so grid that they use for their Grid Runner. And so Grid Runner seems to be this game that they have created alongside of it. I don't know how I kind of missed it in the mix of things. But this is they coming out with multiple boards that you can use with these minis. And these minis actually come with stats, as you can see on the right. So you can see the various heroes and characters you get to use. So not only do you get these miniatures, but you also get a game that you can play them with as well. Next up, we have One Page Rules. One Page Rules has a starter pack that they like to mix up every now and then. So there are the contents of the starter pack. With One Page Rules, they are not for just one system. They have their own various systems. So there are some ships out this month, as well as some scatter terrain. Again, their scatter terrain is designed to be printed with resin, not with FDM. They have a fantasy release and a sci-fi release practically every month. This month it's Vampiric Undead for fantasy and the High Elf Fleets for sci-fi. So let's look at Vampiric Undead. And you'll notice that there is still some stuff to come that's not out just yet. As if you don't get enough with the Vampiric Undead, there is the enormous Vampiric Undead Lord on Stitched Horde. You can see a couple of adventurers are fixing to become overwhelmed by this monstrosity as it encompasses them. Then we have various werewolves and knights that are mounted. And these come in multiple variations for whatever it is that you need. Unarmed or armed. We have some abominations, I presume. Golems. Apologies, OPR, I don't know what you were calling them. I meant to look that up. One Page Rules often gives you objectives, a measuring device. You can print some dice if you need some characterful dice. All sorts of bases, square, round, etc. More bases than you'll probably ever need. For science fiction, we're going to see High Elf Fleets, and we don't have any pictures of the tanks, so make sure you get a look at those as we go about here. So as we move about, we see that we have characters of various sorts. We even have little characters to add to our characters, a little elven squirrel, for lack of a better term. Notice that with these high elves, you can get them either masked or unmasked, if you so prefer. Same thing here. They either come with mask or they come without mask. They come with certain weapons and they come with different weapons as well. So it's not just the masking as well. And the little elven squirrel is again trying to give them his ball. Or maybe more ammunition. Again, they come with bases and they come with scatter objectives and rulers and dice. There's also 2D terrain that OPR does, but I didn't bother including that because you're not printing it on a 3D printer. Next up, we have Station Forge. Station Forge is currently continuing to release. They release about once a week, so they usually release about 4 or 5 times a month, and any one of these is arguably enough for the price of admission. But these are the Scavenger Vicars, which is actually the most recent release for this month so far. Then we have the Zenarid Crawlers. What is that, like 11 of those? 10 of those. 10 different variants. Sorry, I can't count. And then we have the Vaskar Dropship, complete with crew. I'm speechless. Let's just leave it at that. So anyway, we're hopefully within about 30 minutes of recording this. I think I'm at 25 minutes. I appreciate you watching. Please don't forget to comment below if there's something that I'm missing every month. Some Patreons are easier to get pictures for than others are, and I'll see you either at the end of the month, hopefully for a June preview. Hopefully we'll do that this coming Memorial Day weekend, and we'll be watching for what comes next. I'll see you soon.